don't think I'm going to be able to pump up the Hydrogas system on this. Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. Today was going to be the day that I tried to pump up the suspension, because now I have a pump and I got some of that nuclear looking liquid for the suspension. And as you can see, the Metro is on axle stands because I wanted to check the piping going between the suspensions on the rear. On the Metro, the suspension is connected between the two rear wheels and the front ones are independent. That was down to trying to keep the production costs down on these, because ideally you would want to connect the back wheel with the front wheel on each side, just like on the Austin Princess. But not on this one. On the later models, when I think Rover started making them, was connected that way, but not this one. I wanted to check out that piping because I could remember that when I got this car, it got some rusty pipes in the rear, and it actually failed the MOT in the past because of rusty brake lines. But it's not the brake lines. It is the suspension lines that are rusty. And I literally just touched the pipes. And if you are going to work on cars with hydroelastic suspension on them, or Hydrogas as it is in this case, and you're going to mess around with the piping, especially on rusty cars, I would advise to put some eye protection on, because I just touched that pipe. I really just touched it and it just burst. I tried to catch some of it, and I did actually manage to get a little bit of it. And it's green and really clear looking, just like the stuff that's in this. Well, maybe that's more yellow, but it's looking pretty good. That's a good thing, but the piping needs to be changed. And that can easily be done with the rear subframe on the car, because it's just right there, and then it goes to the Schrader valve kind of thing and the divider and to the other side. So it would be possible to do that. But I have some pretty severe rust at a very common rust spot on Austin Metros, an area where most people would most likely just scrap it if it was rusty, because it's difficult to fix proper. And if I were to fix this rust without taking the subframe off, it would be a botch. Also, the rear subframes on Metros are known to rust, just like on the Mini. I think mine is solid. It looks like crap. It looks like something that has been on the bottom of the sea, but everything in the Danish climate looks like that. And I think it's not that bad. So what I have decided to do today is to remove the subframe and inspect it. As you can see, I know this looks horrible, but it's not necessarily as bad as it looks, but it could be. I don't know yet. But this line, for instance, is one of the suspension lines, and it has not cracked on this side yet, but look at the state of it. It is really crispy. This is the brake line. That is also crispy right there, so I'm going to change that as well. The rest of it actually looks pretty decent. I haven't inspected it completely yet though. But as you can see, I have some rust work to do there. I have some pretty serious rust work to do right here. And this is just where the subframe is actually mounting by those 3 bolts to the car. One of my good friends told me a story about one of the Minis, the many Minis that he owned. That was pretty rusty, but it was drivable. And then one day they lifted it to actually scrap it with a forklift, and the subframe just didn't follow the car. It just stood there. And that's the risk you're having with this kind of rust. The subframe will still be attached just by gravity, but it's not ideal. But today it will be all about taking those 3 bolts out from this side and the other side. And then it seems as though the Hydrogas suspension thing is also bolted right there, and with a bolt going into the spare wheel compartment. So let's get started. To begin with, I'm going to try to locate that bolt that goes into the spare wheel compartment. Doing that is a bit more complicated than it has to be, because the gas struts are not able to hold the hatch up. But a little tip for that is to get a wire grip like this, then it will hold it up. So, another thing. Remember the low mileage in this car. And this repair is not made by me. So, yeah. It's the same on the other side, by the way. So there's just been so much rust. Another one of those metric wheels. The spare one. That's the surprising bit about this car. All the places where you expect a car to be rotten, it is actually pretty decent. But other spaces, other spots, it's not so good. I believe it's this nut right there that holds the suspension thing up. And then underneath, we should be able to take that one out as well. Oh, it's coming apart so easily. That's really nice. And now I got that one off. And I got that one off. And now it's hanging a lot lower, of course. It's still connected at the front, but the lower one is sacking now. So I'm gonna support it with some jacks. And I don't really know how the handbrake cable is attached just yet, other than it seems to be done above the subframe. So I think it will be easier to just take a look at that when I can lower it down. But next up, I'm just going to cut this brake line right in there because we're going to change it. And that is pretty much the only thing that connects to the subframe, other than the handbrake cable, of course. And the exhaust goes above it, so that's also nice. So far it seems pretty straightforward actually. But I could be saying that a bit too early. That's it. And then on this side, let's just remove that amazing Alley Cat rim. This car hasn't really driven since 2005, I think it is, but still. The bearing is just like new. I can understand why a lot of you don't think this car is worth it. And to be honest, whatever I do to this car, no matter how great the restoration is going to be, which it is not going to be very great, I mean, this car will not be worth the amount of money and time invested in it. But that is not why I'm doing this, because I think this car is a great little piece of history. I like the shape. I like that funky mini engine. And I also actually kind of like that it's not a mini, because I'm a bit tired of those. I have nothing against minis, but they are just everywhere. This is a nice car. It could be a fun daily classic for me. And well, really you shouldn't always do stuff that makes sense. Just having fun is more than enough. That's it. Now I'm going to loosen up those 3 balls and the ones on the other side. And then stuff should happen. Like that. Came off. So the last one, now the subframe could drop. I don't know how the balance is, so I'm going to be a bit careful. Oh, that went pretty well. Oh, it's going to be a bit fiddly to get back on. I might need a helping hand for that. Now I'm just going to lower one side and see if I can see how that handbrake cable is connected. Smooth! Would it maybe be easier to disconnect the cable at the front end, maybe? So with the handbrake cable now disconnected to the car, that was fiddly, but that was mainly due to the carpet being in the car. Without the carpet, it wouldn't have been a big deal. So the most difficult bit so far to remove the subframe is to disconnect the handbrake cable. So that's a pretty decent thing. Let's try to pull it out. I wonder how heavy that is. I don't think it's that bad. No, it's not at all. Of course, the drums are pretty much the most heavy part on this. Or maybe the swing arm. Oh, don't go away. Stay here. Oh, it wants to lie on the other side. Let's go over and see if we can punch any holes in this subframe. I know it looks rusty, but I don't think it is as bad as you might think. We still have some paint down here, but rust is coming through, of course. I don't know where the weak spots are on these, but so far so good. So I flipped it on to the other side. This is the side facing upwards on the car. A place where salt and mud can rest for ages. So I think this is good. It looks pretty manky, but it's not that bad. I did notice a rubber, maybe it's called a dust cap, I don't know, that is split right there. That's not ideal, of course. And as far as I know, they tend to split in between here, on both sides, of course, but it doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to still be connected together. Of course, there is the bolt going through if the glue lets go, but I think that's all right. I'm not really sure what the best thing to do about the rust on the subframe really is. Well, I do know that a really good thing would be to sandblast it and then paint it, but that is not going to be a possibility for me because I don't have a sandblaster. I'm not going to be able to pay for a sandblaster to do that on this because it will just not be worth it. And also, I like to do stuff myself. So I think the solution that I'm going to do is I'm gonna scrape all the loose rust off with a wire wheel or something like that, and then paint it with some kind of rust prohibiting paint that hopefully can protect it a little bit. And then I'm gonna spray some chainsaw oil into to the cavities and the hard to reach areas on it. And then of course repair the brakes and the suspension lines and so on. And then I think it's just ready to go back on the car when I fix that rust. I'm gonna end this video here, and hopefully I can get some good advices from you guys about what to do to this subframe, how to protect it. And if any of you Metro gurus are watching, then please tell me what is a good idea to change now before I put it back on. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.